Hey, what is up, football fans? Welcome into the kickoff episode of Three Man Rush over here at Buffalo Rumblings, being brought to you by SB Nation on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network and being served up to you live by Picasso's Pizza on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's, we are Buffalo Pizza. Shipping local and nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net. This is it. We've got him in the house. The long-awaited debut of Three Man Rush with Big O, as you can see on the screen. What is up, Jerry? Welcome in, sir.
Hey, I got to ask. I hadn't seen some of those pictures in quite some time. 18 and 19-year-old Jerry was an interesting dude, man. I'm telling you. Man, those were nice. That one, the one where I'm kneeling with the football, that hair was perfect, man.
It was epic. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I came across those. I was digging around and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna definitely find the Tulsa when he signed with them. We're gonna find that picture, and we got it. So we saw super young Jerry up to what most people I think in Bills Mafia world know you as is, Jerry, who killed it for the Bills for tons and tons of years. So Jerry, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what we're doing with this show?
Well, what we're doing is we're going to dig into a little bit of college football. We got a lot of people that, our network, Buffalo Rumblings, does the best job on Buffalo Bills breakdown. And we will get into some Bills. But one thing we don't have is we don't have a lot of college football talk, if any. So that's where this whole thing starts, right? I mean, you go ahead, you get to college, you get that chance to play pro ball. So we're going to go ahead and dig into college football. We're going to dig a little deeper into Syracuse, UB, the Bulls. We're going to dig into those guys as well, little action, and talk about them. And then also we'll get into the top 25 matchups. And, of course, at the end, we would be amiss since our co-host Sarah is kind of like, where's Waldo? She's at every game, right? Mm-hmm. We'd be amiss if we didn't talk about the Bills. So we're going to get into the Bills a little bit towards the end. We're definitely going to be heavy college football content. And you never know with this crew where everything, where it may move us, so to speak.
Absolutely. As I kind of teed this thing up and I put it out there, I was like, we got Cuse, we got Bills, top 25. We're going to have some Tulsa in there, right? Jerry's got a rep. He's got a rep where he came from, and his son plays there now too, right? So we got a rep there. But Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself if there's some folks out there that don't know you? If you don't know her, I'm kind of surprised. But, let's see how she feels about it.
Yeah, let's just pretend everyone knows who I am. No, I've been around for quite a while with the Bills, and just last couple years I decided to start going to every game, and it's been a lot of fun traveling. It makes my life pretty crazy and hectic. Like, I fly out tomorrow morning to go to the Jets Bills game, so we'll see how long I continue to do this. But right now it's been definitely a fun experience, and it's gotten me to be introduced to a lot of people. And I kind of grew up on Syracuse football, so it was definitely one of those it's definitely a cool thing to start talking about Syracuse again. They've been doing pretty well. I went to the University of Miami. I'm a huge Hurricane fan, so I have not stopped liking college football, and we can all blame Jim Kelly for the University of Miami decision that I made to go there. So
not a bad one.
Right.
Well, lately it's been a little bit of a bad one. We've been struggling for quite a while to get back to relevancy. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to talking some college football, because it all fits together. Once you start talking about college, it kind of leads into the NFL, and there's never really an off season, because you have, the combine, and you have the draft, and it'll be fun to dig deep into all of that.
And I have to say, I grew up in Philadelphia. So I was there till I was 18, and then I went to University of Tulsa. My parents moved down here. We've been down here ever since. But I do know a little bit about Syracuse football. I know they play in a stadium that was there when I was a kid. They're still in the same one. But I believe it was Dick McPherson was the head coach all the way back then, when I think that was his name. But no Syracuse a little bit from playing Penn State. Back when Joe Pa was around, and all those days of Foge Fazio and Jackie Sherrill at Pitt and everything else. So we'll get into the Pitt Panthers in a little bit. But how about yourself, Colt? Otherwise, now see, I guess, do people know you as Colt, or they know you as the Buffalo Nerd?
It's probably just Colt. I mean, the hope is that eventually it'll be the Buffalo Nerd, right? Is obviously that's what I do a lot of as the Buffalo Nerd Sports Podcast host, and put out all that material over there here on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network and Podcast Network Thursday nights, a little bit before this one. Richard and everybody was hanging out. And as Jerry and Sarah have kind of mentioned, we're going to be super college football heavy, right? So we're going to sprinkle in some live shows that will knock out and stuff like that. Besides that, you guys will mostly be able to find the show on Saturday mornings before you're getting ready to hang out and watch your college football and do all that kind of stuff. So we're really looking forward to pumping out some good stuff for you. We got a lot of material we're going to hammer through and have a lot of fun. And then, of course, we're going to end with the greatest football team in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills, right? Bills. Can't go wrong. So let's get right into it. We kind of start here with Syracuse. Sarah hit on it already. They were flowing, man. They were looking so good. Everybody was loving it. Now they've lost 2 in a row. Now they're good football teams they lost to, right? We can't say that they lost to bad teams, but they're kind of trending the wrong way. They got a matchup this week against a Pitt Panther team who's 4-4, and they go in there as the underdog, right? This is a team that people were talking about as one of the top teams in college football a couple weeks ago. So where are you two, Sarah, Jerry, on what's happening with Syracuse? Can they turn it around? What's going on?
Go ahead, Sarah. I'll let you go first.
Okay. So I think with Syracuse, they did lose two games in a row, but it was to good teams. Notre Dame is definitely not as bad as their record shows right now. They've put up some really good numbers against some really good teams. The fact of the matter is they actually were leading Clemson into the fourth quarter. So I'm definitely not, discouraged by them. Now, Pitt won the ACC last year. So I kind of feel like they're going in, losing 2 in a row. They're going into Pittsburgh. It's a hard place to play. So I kind of figured they would be the underdogs. We just need, hopefully, to have Schroeder show up, because he is, in my opinion, the reason why they did bad last week is because he came in and started, the first throw of the game was an interception. And Schrader has been kind of the backbone. He's what has led them back when they've been down. He's been the second half of all these games. So I'm looking forward, and he was out the second half of the Clemson game. So I'm looking forward to having him come back and establish that he is still the number 1 quarterback on that team, because now that there's a little bit of a, controversy. But I'm looking forward to it. I think we can right the ship if they come out and perform the way that they did the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's amazing how fast people forget. Schrader was a guy that was projecting upward. He was playing better and better, it seemed like, each week. And then he gets to the Notre Dame game, and he does throw the pick six, first play of the game. But, if you look at this was really the first huge game that Syracuse had at home in quite some time. And I know they played at Clemson. I know he played in some really hostile environments. A lot of times for teams like Syracuse that are kind of, let's say, your underdog, even though they're playing well, they're a good football team, they haven't done much lately, right? They won one game last year, I believe. So you look at this team, they're playing at home in front of a packed Carrier Dome. Is it still called the Carrier Dome, or is it called something else now?
Yep.
And it was one of these situations where it's harder sometimes, more pressure packed to play at home in these big games like this than it is on the road. But you're right, Sarah. He didn't perform very well. And he needs to get back on track. I think he is their quarterback. I think he's their leader, and he's going to have to play good for them to do good. But you look at the rest of their schedule, they're at Pitt, who's unranked. Then they're back at home against Florida State, who's unranked, and a team that is very gettable, so to speak. I mean, the thing about Florida State, you don't know who you get each week, right? Mm-hmm. 1 week they're beating LSU, the next week they're losing the team they shouldn't lose to. And then they go on the road to Wake Forest, which is always a toss-up, a really hard place to play. And then they're back on the road for their season finale at unranked Boston College. So the schedule's there for them. They can win these last 4 games very easily and be right where they want to be. But, it is hard, especially with the momentum they had. It was kind of a downer, losing that game at home against Notre Dame, especially the team that had the record that they had at the time.
Yeah, it's a tough loss. I mean, anytime that you get a big-time matchup in your own building and you're trending, you got to pull it off, right? The college season is so short. Like, you can't miss on those opportunities. So this is a tough loss. But all in all, for the Cuse as a football program, if you're in this discussion period, top 25, you're in that mix. That's a good spot for the program, right? I think everybody would be happy with being in the mix every year.
I think Baber's done a wonderful job, and what he's done in this, some of these teams, some of the smaller P5 teams, and even some of the P6 teams, have really had to get innovative when it came to recruiting during COVID, right? And I think COVID recruiting has taught a lot of these maybe lower tier P5, high, P6 teams. It's taught them some things about how to recruit. We see Syracuse in Oklahoma. They offer kids in Oklahoma. If you look at their roster, they have kids from California all the way across the board. Now, of course, they're always been pretty strong, the northern part of that Atlantic seaboard, but they're even getting down into Florida now, and they're getting a lot of players from across the country. So I think that's the one thing that Bino Baber's done very well is that. Plus, he's thinking outside the box a little bit. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Syracuse's starting nose guard is 5'10", 266 pounds. He plays right on the center, and he does a phenomenal job. It takes a lot of guts to walk in that room with all these other coaches sitting there going, okay, you need to offer this kid. Well, give me his intangibles.
Yeah.
He's real smart. Well, give me his intangibles. Yeah. He's real strong. No, how big is he? And you tell them how big he is, and they laugh you out of the room, right?
Right.
They're doing things like that. They're recruiting across the country, and they got a really nice roster.
I love Dino, and I think that he's been doing the last 2 years. I think he kind of had a little bit of an off year 3 years ago. Last year was a lot of those new people coming in, and they didn't do well, but he had brought them in, which kind of set them up for this year. So I've been pretty impressed with what he's been doing. I've always loved, him as a coach, and I think that now he's doing a lot better with the recruiting. And they actually hit the portal this year too, which has been definitely helpful. So.
It looks like we may have been corrected that it is not the Carrier Dome. It is the JMA Wireless Dome officially.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill,
right?
I'm 52. I've taken a lot of shots to the head.
But yeah, for me, it's the Carrier Dome. It's
still going to be the Carrier Dome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how Syracuse is thinking outside the box, using kind of the smaller guy there at a major position that typically is a big, huge animal in there, right? So now let's shift over to, I guess, what we'll call the smaller little brother, kind of in the Buffalo Bulls. They don't get kind of the same magnitude of where they play that Syracuse gets, but the program has really turned around a lot in the past few years. You see the coaches getting sniped out of there left and right because they're doing a lot of good things. Now, they've already played this week, so we don't really get to talk about what they're getting into, but we did just watch them lose to Ohio in a big-time matchup for them in the MAC. They came in. They're still at 4-1 in the MAC, but so is the team they just lost to. They've got another MAC matchup this week against Central Michigan. Where are you guys on the Bulls?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with the Bulls was they started the season 0-3, and it was like, okay, well, here we go. But then they started with their the MAC competition, and when they got into the conference, they won 5 in a row. So it was great. It was like, here we are, we're winning, and they're doing it well. And then they played Ohio, which unfortunately they were tied with Ohio. So it was like I think Ohio had already lost one. So it was like they need to win this game, and then they ended up losing big time. So now they're tied with Ohio, and they have the tiebreaker. So Ohio has the tiebreaker. This game's going to be huge now against Central Michigan, because they need to continue to win within the conference if they want to go to the championship game.
I think the formula's there now. I mean, Coach Lindquist is a guy that's come in. He was a DC at Michigan, and he was with the Cowboys. He's an NFL coach as well. And now he gets an opportunity for his first head coaching job. He knows what it takes to win. Okay. And I think what you're seeing again with the Bulls, just like Syracuse tonight on the Bixby team. So if you're paying attention, I've got a lot of stuff going on. I got my Phillies are playing in Game 5. We've got a nationally televised high school. We got a nationally televised high school football game, right? We got the town I live in, Bixby, Oklahoma, is playing Jinx on ESPN2, and one of the kids is making his decision tonight on air, I guess, to where he's going to go to school. And there's another kid that's there, and I don't know if he's going to say, but he's got Buffalo as one of his 3 choices. And this is a kid from Bixby, Oklahoma. Now, this is a program that's won 57 games in a row, or 58. They've won the last 3 or 4 state championships, playing against a state championship team. So, there is a lot of pedigree there, but still, these programs are getting out and about, and they're finding kids where maybe they haven't found kids before. But, Buffalo loses to Maryland. The game they shouldn't have lost is probably Holy Cross. They lose 37-31, but they lose to Coastal Carolina, who the Mullets have all kinds of momentum going on. Again, just like Syracuse, it mirrors them. They had a chance to take over first place in the league, had a big game against a big opponent, and they basically got beat by half. 45-24. So rough outing for them, but their schedule sets up really, really well. They play Central Michigan, obviously kind of a middle of the pack MAC team, and then you got Akron, who's not very good, and you got Kent State, who's not very good. So their destiny's sitting there for them as well. They got a chance to go bowling and control their own destiny. That's really all you want when you get down into November in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Central Michigan's 3-6. They're definitely one of the teams in the MAC that you're not as concerned with. So this is definitely a game Buffalo should be able to turn it back around. Speaking of the Mullets there from Coastal Carolina, they're currently up 21-14 against Appalachian State right now.
Yeah.
So that's right. There is college football playing right now. When we talk about the MAC being on weird schedules, there is other college football taking place right now too. But now let's talk about some big dogs a little bit, right? I think every year this playoff thing, it comes around, everybody's all irritated. No, our team should be there. Our team should be there. So I just want to get your guys' opinion. I just looked here before we got started. They have Tennessee at 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia at 3, Clemson at 4, Michigan at 5, Alabama at 6, and TCU at 7. The only non-undefeated team is Alabama at 7-1. Everybody else is 8-0. Where are you guys at? How do you not have all the 8-0 teams at the top, right, for starters? But then how do you guys rank them? Do you have any issues with 4-5? Do you have, where are you guys at on that?
I have a big issue with 4-5. I think Michigan's is in that top 4. I don't think that Clemson necessarily deserves to be in that top 4. I think Michigan plays a tougher schedule. Now, obviously, a lot of these things are going to take care of themselves. Michigan has to play Ohio State, and there'll be some other big games, but and then obviously Georgia has to play Tennessee, but I think that Clemson's sitting at 4 for one reason only, and that's Boo Corrigan. I don't know if you know who Boo Corrigan is, but he is the AD that's over the selection committee this year, and Boo just happens to be the athletic director at NC State, which is a team that's in the ACC. So we've seen it before. We've seen it in Oklahoma a few years ago. Joe Castiglione was on the committee, and next thing you know, you saw Oklahoma squeeze in over some other teams. And so I think that Michigan should be in the 4. The other one I have a big time problem with is TCU sitting all the way down there at 8. I don't believe that they, I don't believe that ranking is appropriate. I think with their record, they should be sitting probably at 5 or 6, not where they are. That just kind of shows you what they feel about the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit of a disagreement. I think Clemson, the reason why they're at 4 is at this point in time is because they struggled against Syracuse. Tennessee, I am a huge Tennessee fan this year. I love watching them play. I can't wait for the game this week. I think that the only reason why they have them number 1 is because they're undefeated and then they dethroned Alabama. I don't think they're technically number 1. I think that Georgia should be number 1 right now, and we will find that out this weekend when they play. But I think Alabama, they're not going to not have them in the top 6 to for show because it's Alabama. I think Michigan, what hurts them is their non-conference play. They don't have any teams that they're going against to strengthen that to strengthen their bid. So unfortunately, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot with that. But with TCU, I'm kind of in agreement there. I think they should be higher. Especially right now, I think that I kind of personally think they should be in there with the 5 or the 6. I don't kind of feel like Michigan should be there right now, but Oregon and who was the other one? That's the one loss team, USC. I think those are kind of your 7 and 8 right now. They're kind of sitting on the outside as well. So I think that, again, the only reason why Tennessee is number 1 is because they beat Bama.
Tennessee did have if you remember correctly, way back earlier in the year, September, they did play an overtime game against Syracuse's next opponent, Pittsburgh. They had to go to OT to beat Pittsburgh. Obviously, their non-conference was very limited. They played Akron, and then of course they throw in the crazy SEC off week game next week against, I believe it's Tennessee Martin is who they play. But it's hard to beat an SEC schedule, right? You're never gonna no matter who you play in the offseason in the non-conference games, you're never going to be able to come in and say, well, their schedule's weak. I mean, they're playing SEC teams week in and week out. So, they beat them, they win. And I think you're right. I think that beating Alabama is what put them over the top. That's that big win that they had. Obviously, Georgia is the returning national champion. I kind of always thought that you were the man until somebody beat you. But obviously, they feel Tennessee has a little more glow to them than Georgia. But that soon will be taken care of itself. And if Tennessee can pull that off, I think Harbaugh gets a raw deal. I think there's a lot of people that don't like Harbaugh. That's why Harbaugh's not in the top 4. And I'm sorry, Sarah, if you're putting Michigan at 6 or 7, there's some sort of thing with khaki pants or Harbaugh. It might be my
it might be my feelings with Harbaugh. Right, I'm not a huge Harbaugh fan.
Right, exactly. But I'm just telling you, if Harbaugh was coaching the University of Miami, you would be his biggest fan because he's a heck of a football coach. Now, I'm not going to argue. He is quirky as all get out, and he can be hard to like. But no, I think Michigan's a battle-tested team. But they don't quite have. They got to beat Ohio State, and then everything else will take care of itself, right? I mean, that's kind of what everybody waits for every year with them.
Yep.
Are you going to beat Ohio State? If not, then go about your business.
Yep. So let's get into some games. I think we got, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5 games that involve top 25 teams that we're going to hit on. We're going to cruise through these. I'm going to throw some numbers at you guys and let you know where everything stands. And then you guys are going to kind of tell me where we think we're going to fall on these. Because this shift that we're talking about with the playoffs, there's quite a few matchups this week that are going to make big differences in how this shakes out, right? And interestingly enough, the team that they're claiming to be the number 3 team right now, I look at Vegas a lot for football. They know a lot about what's going on. Their numbers say a lot about what they expect from football, right? So this week, they have the number 3 ranked team in the country as an 8-point favorite over the number 1 team ranked in the country, right? So I'm curious. Georgia's won the last 5 that these two teams have played. So who wins this football game?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I think Georgia's defense is just too good. I think Georgia, and it's at Georgia. If it was in Tennessee, it might be a little bit closer. I might be concerned a little bit about that line. But at this point in time, I think that Georgia's going to win, and they're going to cover the spread.
I have to agree. I don't, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm not putting any money on this game. That's kind of a sucker line. I think Colt kind of said it best. I mean, you're looking at, you're laying 8 at home.
It's interesting, right? You're supposed to be the best team in the country. You're playing the best team in the country, right? So it's very interesting. And I think there's a ton of money on Tennessee. There's a lot of money on Tennessee, right? Because people look at the face value of it and say, but that's when I look at Vegas and say they've got a very good reputation to be about being right about things. And if they're willing to put a number out there like that, they truly believe that Georgia can win this game by 10 points or so, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. I think that nobody's going to be ripping down goalposts and throwing them into the river, right? I mean, this is right. I mean, they're going to play between the hedges, and I can't go against Georgia. I just can't. I mean,
I'll be rooting for Tennessee. I'll be rooting. I want Tennessee to succeed. I think it's interesting that we finally have someone else in the SEC that's doing well. So I'll be rooting for them. I just don't think that there's a chance. I think that they have a great offense. I just think that they haven't played a Georgia defense.
But you're looking at 2 teams offensively, total yards. Tennessee's 3rd, Georgia's 4th, right? Passing yardage, Tennessee's 4th, Georgia's 11th. Rushing yards, they're both the same, 46th and 41st. Points scored, Tennessee is 1st in the country with 49.4 points a game. Georgia at 41.8. So if you look at all these numbers and you look at everything that goes with it, the one thing that I will say, 3rd down conversion, Tennessee 20th, Georgia 14th. The thing is, when you look at this and you start looking at that many offensive numbers that are the same, where is the difference? And the difference is in the defense. And, you look at Georgia, total yards, 6th, passing yardage, 29th, rushing yardage, 10th. They're giving up points. I'm with Sarah on this one. That defense is what makes a difference. And you know what? I wouldn't doubt if there wasn't a big special teams play as well.
Yeah. And so moving into the next one, because this one is an SEC matchup. So we've got number 6 Alabama, number 10 LSU, right? So this is big, right? Because you're going to talk about one of these top 2 teams in the SEC are going to take a loss this week. And then if Alabama can get by LSU, I think we all see the writing on the wall, right? That Alabama is magically back as one of the best teams in the country and in the playoff. And you're talking about a team that's a 13.5-point underdog at home, LSU. The number 10 team in the country is a 13.5-point underdog to the number 6 team in the country. Where are you guys at on this? I mean, they're basically Alabama wins a lot of these games. They've won most of them, right? Minus the one that Joe Burrow played in.
This football team at Alabama right now has a problem playing on the road. They should have lost in Texas, and they didn't lose in Texas. They lost to Tennessee. Now they're playing in a place that I've been to in full regalia, Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge. Never been in a louder, crazier environment than Tiger Stadium. I was down there when they played Texas A&M. It was Johnny Manziel's last game as a college player, and it was insane. And, these are games that LSU wins. I know what the spread is, and I know all these things, but Alabama's a team right now that's still young. And what's funny is it's not that they're not talented. Alabama's just young. Now, obviously, they're young at quarterback, too. They got Bryce Young. And he's a difference maker, okay? And he's a guy that can go ahead and bring a calm to that football team. But these are young players that have a tremendous amount of talent, and you have to learn through experience. Now, did they learn enough at Tennessee when they lost down there? Did they learn enough at Texas when they almost lost? I don't know. But I look at LSU, and they win one of these games every year, one they shouldn't win, and everybody's against them. And I don't know. I like the Tigers in this game. I really do.
Sarah?
So I can't stand Alabama, but I'm gonna say Alabama. My biggest thing here
I can't either.
My biggest thing here is LSU. The fact that they ranked them 10th this week pisses me off. I mean, it really does. They went from being 25th to unranked for 2 weeks in a row. Yes, they played well the last 2 weeks, but to have them go from 25th to unranked to 10th, they're doing it because they're playing Alabama. I honestly feel like no one believes that they're the 10th ranked team in the country. I don't like it at all. And when I saw the rankings come out this week, I said, are you kidding me? They jumped over 15 other teams because, yes, they beat a Florida team, but a lot of, the Gators haven't looked great this year. So, and I'm just not happy with the decision to make them 10th. With that being said, I think the game is closer than Alabama fans want, being that it is on the road. But I don't think that Alabama has anything to worry about. I think they'll come out with the victory. I don't know if they'll cover the spread, but I think they'll definitely come out with the victory.
What I will say about this game is this, and Brian Kelly falls into this category for me, like Jim Harbaugh does for a lot of other people.
Can't stand Brian Kelly.
I'm not a big Brian Kelly fan, okay? Now, I didn't say anything about – I didn't put words in your mouth. I didn't want to imply anything. I'm just saying. But anyway, and by the way, if Dockers are very uncomfortable. If I look at Brian Kelly, I'm not a fan all the way back from when he was at Cincinnati. But what I will say is this. He's a really good football coach. And if you don't think he's not going to win games at LSU, he's going to win games. This type of game, this might be too big too early, but it would not shock me if they win it. Like I said, I'm still picking them. But Brian Kelly's a good football coach. I'll have him ready.
Yeah, I'm not a I hate Notre Dame. So
I am with you. So we agree on something else.
There you go. So the feelings come over from Notre Dame. So
yes, exactly.
And the money agrees with siding with LSU in this game, obviously at 13.5 points. It feels very much like an NFL division game, right? These teams are familiar with each other. They get a lot of action with each other. It's hard to see these games really get into blowout type of atmospheres that you're talking about double-digit victories. So, yeah.
Very evenly matched. Again, if you look at stats, I'm sorry, Colt, to cut you off. Just real quick. Go. Another very evenly matched game. There's a few areas that are a little bit skewed. but another good game that should play out well this weekend.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and it's gonna make a big determination in what happens, right? Like moving forward. So absolutely. Huge. So let's move over to Texas. We got Texas is ranked 24th in the country. They're going up against Kansas State, ranked 13th in the country. Texas is the favorite here, minus 2.5 points. Texas has actually won five of the last five times these teams have matched up. Texas has won. Interestingly enough, Texas's last loss was to Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago, and then they went on the bye. And then Kansas State, who they're getting ready to play, went out and waxed Oklahoma State last week, 48-0. So where are we at on this one?
And I called that one. That I felt good about that one. I've just like Tennessee, I've been watching a lot of Kansas State this year, and I'm all for them winning. I know Texas, has kind of gotten a little bit of the raw deal, losing a couple of close games and falling out of the 25, and now I think they're 24th or 20. Yeah, I think they're 24th ranked now. 24th. But with that being said, I think most people have Texas. I am going to go with my heart right now and say I am going to root and, pick Kansas State. I loved what they did last week. Texas lost to Oklahoma State, and like you said, and I think that the only thing that Kansas State has going against them is they have a team coming in here who is coming off a loss, and they're coming off of a huge, victory. So I hope they don't have the hangover, and, we'll see, but it's at Kansas State, and that's another place. Manhattan, Kansas is one of those places. I think they seat like almost 100,000 fans. It's a hard place to play, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm gonna go with my heart on this one and say Kansas State.
I will say this, that if Jerry O was a college football team, he would be Kansas State. Everything that they do, I love. I'm a huge Kleiman fan. Was a huge fan of his when he was at North Dakota State, and he's brought that same attitude to Kansas State and Manhattan. And what he does is he's another think outside the box guy. He has his principles that he sticks with. They're going to be physical. They're going to run the football. They're going to play defense. But the way they recruit, they find guys that are outliers. They find guys that maybe aren't right for the position they play, and they move them to another position. This is a la Gary Patterson back when he used to be at TCU. That's what he did a lot of. There's a lot of tight ends that were playing defensive end and things like that. This is a really, really good football team without their starter at quarterback. Adrian Martinez, the transfer from Nebraska, he supposedly is still going to be out this week, we think. Howard, I believe is his name, the kid that came in and has played for him for quite some time, is doing a wonderful job. Got dinged up a little bit in that TCU game, but has come back and is playing well. I love this matchup because it's two polar opposites. It's a school with a huge, huge pedigree, with a huge budget, and a bunch of arrogant fans who think that they're the top echelon of college football, against a school that was brought back from the dead by Bill Schneider, that plays in Manhattan, Kansas, an oasis in one of the ugliest states in our country. Okay. And they every Saturday in the fall, they find a way to be joyful, and that's by playing good physical football, right? And so I like K-State here. I'm going to pick K-State because I will always, I don't care how fast, how athletic, I will always take the tougher, more physical football team over the prettier finesse. He says left lane hammer down, or all gas, no brake. It's kind of like halfway on the gas, or all gas, a little bit of brake. I'm taking K-State. I love what they do. I think they're incredibly underrated, and I think you're going to see them make a lot of noise on New Year's Day in a big bowl.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, the people at Texas might not like your assessment very much, but I think it's great, and I love it. So absolutely. I think that right now the money, though, is it's favoring Texas at this point in that one. So we'll see how it all plays out. Right.
The money has favored Texas right from the start of time, right?
Right.
They always have more than everybody else, and they always get the same thing they always got, which is mediocrity. So until they prove me wrong, I'm going with K-State.
Love it. All right, let's get into the next one. Up next, we got number 21 ranked Wake Forest going up against 22nd ranked NC State. We got one of them coming off. Wake Forest is coming off the loss against Louisville. NC State just came off a win against Virginia Tech. So far, the money sides with Wake Forest in this one, and they've won 4 out of the last 5 when these two have played. So where are you guys at?
I'm Wake Forest. I think that right now, the biggest thing with Wake Forest is just making sure the defense shows up. Their offense, when they're clicking, they're clicking. And NC State, their offense is kind of like, let's get out there and do what we can, take what we're given. But they're not, showboating. They're not doing anything, great, but they do have a decent defense. So in my opinion, Wake Forest, if they come out there and actually have a defensive game plan going, they're gonna do better just because of how explosive their offense can be. And their quarterback is ridiculous.
I'm probably gonna see. I get too wrapped up in some of these things.
You don't like this program either.
What's that?
You don't like this program either. Should we mute you before you get started?
No, I like both these programs. And the thing is, I like NC State too much because I get too personal about teams sometimes. Really good buddy of mine, Charlie Wiles, the coach for years at Virginia Tech. He played at Murray State with some of my real good buddies. He was a good friend. He played with his Bud Foster's roommate at Murray State. Then he went up to VTech and coached for Bud. He's the D-line coach with Bud Foster at VTech for all those years. And then when Coach Beamer left, they made some changes. So Charlie's now at NC State. So I like Charlie. Plus BJ Barham, the lead singer of one of my favorite bands, American Aquarium, is also a grad of NC State. So that always wants me to go there. But when I look at this, I like Wake Forest. I think Wake Forest is a physical team. If you look at some of the things they do, rushing yards, they get after it with rushing yards. And NC State has an issue stopping the run. So, when I look at this type of thing, they get out. Excuse me, I'm sorry, that was vice versa. Actually, NC State plays good rush defense, and Wake Forest does not rush the football very well, but they do pass it. I'm going to go with Wake. I'm with her. I think her quarterback's dynamic, as good as I think NC State is. As much as I like them, I'm going to have to take Wake.
And you guys are on the side of the money. The money sides with Wake Forest in this one at the -4 right now.
I apologize for rambling there. I'll try to cut my my rambles down as we move into this whole thing.
This is your show, baby. You do whatever you want. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. This is your show.
I tend to get a little wild.
It's great.
Hey, if I know somebody at every program across the country by the end of this, I'm cool with that. That's cool.
I'm not trying to name drop. I'm a little bit agitated right now. My Phillies are down 2-1. I haven't seen my high school game, so we're moving along. We're all right.
All right, we got one game left here we're going to chat about before we get into a little Bills chatter real quick. Next up, we got another team that's going to be an absolute important piece to how this playoff plays out, right? So we've got the number 4 Clemson Tigers at -3.5 points up against Notre Dame. So right now the money's siding with Notre Dame. Oddly enough, the last time that both these teams have taken the field, they played the Syracuse Orange, and they both have beat the Syracuse Orange. So where are you guys at in this matchup?
Yeah, I think Clemson struggled against Syracuse, and it shows how much, and Notre Dame did not. Notre Dame destroyed Syracuse. So it's one of those things that I think that Clemson will still come out with the win, but I think that Notre Dame's going to definitely give them run for the money. And it pains me to say it because I can't stand both programs. I'm an ACC girl. So, Clemson has been a thorn in my side for a long, long time. So I would love to, and I can't stand Notre Dame, but I would love to see Notre Dame beat Clemson because Notre Dame has lost quite a few games this year, but it's been, it's been close games or they're, to really good programs. So I think that Notre Dame is better than their record shows. So I think that they'll give them a run for their money, but in the end, I think it'll be a Clemson victory. What was the line on that one?
They got a 3.5 for Clemson.
Oh, really? It's that close.
Yep. And actually, the money right now is with Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yep.
I like it.
These games used to be really cool back in the day. 6:30 at night or 6:30 kick or nighttime game at up at Notre Dame. They were bringing in the portable lights. and all that stuff. The time has obviously changed that. Playing a night game in Notre Dame used to be a big time deal. As much as I would love to see Notre Dame win this football game, I think Clemson's too athletic. I think Clemson does too many things. There's too much team speed. I don't think that Notre Dame can keep up with them. There's a reason why, guys. You have to there's a reason why that Brian Kelly is at LSU. He knew it was leaving, and he knew what was behind it, and he knew there was going to be a rebuild, and he wanted to get out before it got bad. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's one of the best coaches around. I would hire Marcus Freeman to coach my team. Notre Dame's going to have to be patient with Marcus because he's going to have a chance to build this cachet of players back up. As much as they have talent, they need to get a little bit better to play primetime games against the likes of number 4 ranked Clemson. So I like the Tigers, whether they stay, whichever quarterback they play, doesn't matter to me. I think they'll take care of business.
I like it. And interestingly, these teams haven't played since 2020, right? So they don't get a lot of action against each other, right? So it should be kind of a closer, kind of sloppy game, I think, almost initially as they try to figure their way. But Clemson is a powerhouse, so we'll see how it all plays out. But that's going to do it for the college stuff. But since we had a very exciting week here, and we do have, a pretty good football team in Western New York that plays in the NFL, why don't we spend a few minutes here just kind of chatting a little bit about, why don't you each of you let me know how you felt about what happened at the trade deadline and what happens this weekend.
Good, Sarah.
Oh, okay. So I didn't quite know how to feel about Hines to begin with. Kind of was like, we kind of have the same type of player with Cook. So I was a little not worried, but I was kind of like, what are we doing to begin with? Probably about 30, 45 minutes into it, I went on to all the Colts Twitter feeds and stuff, and they were all so angry. They were like, we got hosed. How in the heck can we, trade him for, a fifth or conditional fifth? Like, right. So the more I read about it, the more I was like, even if he doesn't pan out to be much of anything, other than, kind of a compliment to what Cook's, is out there doing. I think that in the end, we're going to be using him on the return team. And since week 1, I've been like, this is our one downfall. Our return game is our downfall. And if we can pick and choose one, thing to complain about on this team, it's our, we don't have a consistent returnman. So whether it's punt return or kick return, I don't think he does kick return as much as punt returning. So, it'll be interesting to see if we still keep McKenzie back there on kick returns. But I think that it'll be an upgrade on special teams, having him out there. And, I'm actually very, very, very happy that we have Marlowe back. I was upset when when we let him go. So I'm extremely happy that he's back. And I think it was for his 7th. So, to me, it'll be definitely something, for depth. I have a feeling that it kind of solidifies that Poyer probably won't play this week, but I was reading the comment. Yeah. No, it's Jay Spence is in the house. Return game Ben Buns since Andre Roberts left. I talked about this earlier on my show too. He was just the difference maker that we don't necessarily need it, but imagine if we had it right now, right? That's where I am with it. So I agree with you a lot on that.
And what Sarah said it kind of scares me a little bit because you got Frank Reich, who's a former Bill who played for Marv Levy. And you look at his roster, he brought Rusty Jones out of mothballs to be his strength coach at Indy. He was so influenced by the Bills when he was here that he's giving up a guy that if paper's true it can catch the ball out of the backfield and run routes, which is what he used to have in Thurman. And then he's a guy that is a return guy, which, Frank knew how important special teams were to Marv Levy. Marv was the first special teams coach in the NFL, was George Allen's special teams coach, I believe, at San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's given up a guy that's as good out of the backfield, catching the ball like a Thurman, and then a guy that's great in special teams. where's the rub here? I'm scared because if that guy really, if you just gave us that guy, why? Why did you do that? Is it a contract thing? Are you worried about not being able to re-sign him? Does he not fit with your offense? But I told, I was on the Hump Day show last week filling in for Spence, and I told Joe, I said, my dream would be a back that is a out of the backfield back. We've got Singletary's doing a great job running the football. If we had either like a big monster power back or a guy that could play in the passing game with what we do passing game wise would be a huge fit. And we got that in Hines, plus a returner. It's almost like, when you bought something for the regular price, but you got 33% more, right?
Right.
That's how I look at Hines. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's going to be a quick study. I think he's going to get in there, and I think that he's going to do good stuff. And then the Marlowe pick back up, that just tells me that we're not going to see Poyer for a while. And but it also tells me that we've got a little bit of insurance now if we have some issues back there. So great to see him back. Obviously, his family's excited to be back in Western New York. Right. I mean, what a public service announcement for the city of Buffalo and for other free agents in the league. When you want to ask somebody about what's it like playing in Buffalo, just look at that tweet that his wife put out there. Yeah. I mean, that was amazing. So great job by being again.
If you haven't seen it, everyone look it up because it'll tug at your heartstrings just a little bit.
Yep. So great job by Bean. I think he did a wonderful job again, getting us what we needed right before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that speaking to your Hines thing a little bit, I would say it's mostly contract. This is his last year, right? And if you read the tweets that kind of came from him afterwards and what he said to some folks about just not wanting to constantly have quarterback turnover, like every year he's coming into a new quarterback. I don't think he was going to be in Indianapolis next year, period, probably end of story. So getting a little bit, you get Zach Moss, he's cheap. You got another year on his deal. You see if maybe something works out. But I agree, it's a little fishy sometimes, but maybe Reich's just giving us a little final, hey, go get that Super Bowl since we're not getting it. Or
maybe the Colts are just offloading. I actually think that he has another year or two left on it. I think it's like it's 4.5 and 5, and then
Hines has 2 years with us, but none of the money's guaranteed, and he has 2 years. But I was speaking more towards Indianapolis getting Zach Moss left on a cheap deal,
So maybe they're offloading because they know that they were going to probably cut him in the offseason. They got some, picks now. I think that when they benched Matt Ryan, it was kind of like, okay, so this is what they're doing.
Giving up. So, a little.
Their offensive line needs help. Even Taylor hasn't looked like Taylor. So I think that might be more of the reason, but I'm looking forward to seeing what we do with him. I've been watching a couple of the practices and it's been interesting. I like it.
Looks good.
Yeah, I listened to McAfee quite a bit, and he lost his mind when they traded him. I mean, he was on the air when the trade went across, and he was like losing his mind that they let him go. We've had some quick dudes and some things like that. Singletary, of course, is real quick. We haven't had a lot of straight line speed at that position in quite a while, and Hines is that he can roll now. Yeah. Anytime he has the ball in his hand, he can go touch the pad. So I'm excited to see him play.
Yeah, I think also it's a great move because we've shown Bean and McDermott have shown that they love veteran presence, right? So I'm just viewing this as like Hines is capable. If something bad happens to Singletary, then Hines could carry a majority of the load. We've seen him do it before. If you need somebody to block in crunch time in a playoff game and they're coming, you might not feel comfortable rolling Cook out there, right? So maybe you say that's why this guy's here. But so let's hit on the Jets this week a little bit here real quick. Any concerns?
There's always concerns, right?
What would it be? Where do you think they can get us?
You're going to hear me say this more than any saying that I say as far as NFL football goes, and it's this. Those guys get paid as well. And anytime you're playing professional athletes, things happen. I think the Jets, they picked up – who's the running back they picked up from
James Robinson.
Yeah, they picked up James Robinson. They're kind of trying to figure out their identity, which is – run the football. They got Wilson at quarterback, can run a little bit, take some of the pressure off of him to allow him to continue to develop. They still want to play real good defense.
Yep.
The thing about the Bills, and again, I brought this up on the Hump Day show. It is really hard being that team when you are the best supposedly in the league because, and I'm not going to go to the old cliche. We get everybody's best shot every week,
I like that cliche.
Yeah, well,
That's
if
factual,
you live down here,
think,
if
right?
you live in Oklahoma, that's what you hear from the Sooners every week. We're going to get everybody's best shot every week. And then to explain why they lost, but it's one of those things where the Bills right now, it's human nature. I believe in biorhythms and all those kind of crazy things, and it's hard to be as a human being to be up every week. At your top of you try to be, but it's hard. I mean, they just came off of a very emotional Sunday night game. Even though Green Bay wasn't a great opponent, there was still a lot there. And you saw what happened in the second half, right? They came out, they were beating on them, and they sat in the locker room. And they probably, somebody, just put their feet up or whatever and decided to coast through the second half because they knew they could. Sometimes you got to watch that because it can bite you. And what I'm seeing out of Josh Allen, of all the good he does, he has a tendency to get sloppy with the football, especially early. Now, I know this past week he had 2 turnovers in the second half, but if you look at Miami, you look at Baltimore, you give teams like that energy, and now next thing you know, it's a little bit harder to play them. So, as long as we take care of business early, Josh protects the football, I'm okay. But my biggest thing with him is big early turnovers. He can't have them.
Yeah. Sarah?
I think my biggest concern right now is still looking at the injury report. So seeing that, Poyer obviously did not participate. I'm sure he's pretty much out. Edmonds did not participate or limited. Milano, same. If we don't have both of them at linebacker, that does concern me a little bit. I know that they don't have Breece Hall anymore, so I'm not as concerned about Robinson as I would have been about Breece. Right. But to not have 3 of the most important pieces, and then Von Miller today, he went from a vet rest and now all of a sudden having an ankle. Don't know quite what's up with the ankle, but it's concerning. That technically 4 of our biggest pieces on defense could potentially either be limited or not play. So that's kind of my biggest concern. And then the other thing is because it's within the division, just beating ourselves with stupid things. You always go in there, wondering, is this going to be a Miami game or are we just, because Miami, in my opinion, we beat ourselves. So I just want to make sure that we go in there not overlooking them and just, having a good game.
Real quick though, injury report, Poyer questionable, Von Miller questionable with an ankle. Tre'Davious White obviously said he's playing. Milano's questionable with the oblique, which those things can be I don't ever have that problem. That's like a pulled ab. I don't never have those issues, but I know people that do. And when you have an ab injury, from what I understand, are very, very hard to come back from. So that one does concern me a little bit. Edmonds is questionable with a heel. That's probably plantar fasciitis, something like that. That's nothing that can't get taken care of probably 20 to 40 minutes before pregame. I look at Brown. He's also questionable with his ankle. So, they do have some injury issues. But I think this injury bug that we seem to have this year has proven one thing. Our depth is ridiculous, and our practice squad depth is ridiculous.
Yeah. And if we have Trey go, I don't think he'll play much. I've been saying all week that I think he'll be inactive, but if they actually have him active, I think he goes out there for a couple plays to kind of, get his feet wet, technically, so to speak. So so that he'll be ready for the next 2 home games. But I don't think he'll play much if he's active.
No, I'm with you on that. I wouldn't play him very much at all, and maybe even let him warm up and do some stuff, and then pull him off and put him on the shelf. There's no reason to rush him back, other than to get him a little bit of timing and stuff before the playoffs, before the end of the year. But if he was a safety, that would be one thing. But we're doing fine at corner, and it's just funny how the way the season's fallen, right, guys? If you look at the draft, and everybody's like, "Well, why are we taking corner here? Why are we taking a running back? And why?" It's cornerbacks have become, you better be stocked up on corners and safeties, because they've become the focal points of really good defenses because of the way these teams are playing offense now and the rule changes. you better be loaded up in that secondary. We've done it, and it's been our scouting department's done a heck of a job. We got a kid that's a 6th-round pick from Villanova, a 1AA program, that is starting and playing, significant time. So, it's important. So, yeah, I'm with you. Ease him back in. There's no reason to rush him.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you guys on Trey. I don't think he'll be up this week actually at all. Probably. I don't know that it's necessary. If you go and look at the Jets, that I buy the division stuff. I get all that. That loss of Breece Hall to me though kind of put a big dent in that team. If you go and look at what they were doing, he was getting them big chunks a lot. And when you don't get that, you got a tough defense. But I agree with Jerry that I said that this is a game that by the third quarter we better be stepping on their neck and breaking this, or it could be something that we don't want to see, and we let them hang around.
And that's the one thing that we don't tend to do very well.
Right.
We tend to not. We're kind of like the cat. Once the mouse is basically perished, we're like, it's boring. We'll just go do something else now. They got to get that feel. They got to get that ability to finish teams. But I'm with like Triggs down in the comments. Triggs 44 says, I don't want Trey White playing that on that MetLife turf. Totally agree. That was maybe the comment of the night. I mean, totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think someone made a comment the other day that the only reason why they would activate him is to get him a little bit more touches before going against the Vikings, because obviously the Vikings do have several people at wide receiver that we don't necessarily want, but to have our rookie going up against Justin Jefferson is not necessarily the best thing, but we've already done it this year. They've already went up against several Waddle
and Hill. I mean, they've faced big time opponents this year. And granted that they did give up a big play in that game that eventually probably cost us the game. But that I was talking about this earlier. That's the one thing that you could go to, and that's it. These young kids have played very, very good back there. So I'm going to hang with them. So real quick, before we get out of here, I need score predictions. Who's going first?
Go ahead, Sarah.
All right. Well, I said 41-7 or 41-13 the other day. I am, with all the injuries, I'm going to say 41-17. I'm going to give them one extra touchdown and take away a field goal. So I'm going to say 41-17.
Okay. Jerry?
I'm going 31-20. I think the Jets are going to I think the Jets are going to stick around a little bit.
They have a covering the spread too.
Yes,
wow.
I do.
Yeah.
Wow. Jets got a little bit of belief going on right now.
They do.
If you haven't noticed, there's a little bit of belief coming out of there. I think Salah's a good coach. They're going to be ready to play. Yeah. Wilson's getting better and better. He's getting more comfortable.
I do like him.
Yeah. I can't stand Wilson.
I know. I'm not saying I like him. I'm just saying I don't.
I thought you were talking about Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver. I like him. No. I don't like the quarterback.
No, the quarterback is who I'm talking about. I'm with you. But what I'm saying is, it's a hard place to play.
Yeah.
It is a miserable place to play.
Well, we're going to get everything they got.
Right. And the Jets have some belief right now. It's means something.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to go back. Yeah.
I think it's their defense.
Right. And I go back to my saying, they get paid too.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a little bit of pride, and it's going to be a tough game for us. And I think it's a game we need because we've had too many yawners lately. We need to get in a little bit of a scrap. We need to fight a little bit.
This is going to be the best team top to bottom, though, that they have played all season. They haven't played anything close to what they're going to have come into that building this week. But I'm around you guys. I had 34-17. That's where I'm at. I think it's a game that, like last week, I thought we would be 4 touchdowns, a couple field goals around in that range. So I'm going to stick with that this week. So ultimately, hopefully next week we'll be talking about a Bills victory when you guys are listening to us as we're getting ready to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Again, this is the 3-man rush with the man himself, the big O, Jerry Ostroski. It's the first show of the season for us, so hopefully you guys enjoy what we're up to over here. Make sure you hit the like button below. You're subscribing. Make sure you guys look down in those show notes. You can follow Jerry. You can follow Sarah. You can follow myself. You can follow the show and find out everything that we're up to. And, of course, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Love it.